Hi, today I'm going to be talking about the artist's way and how it can change your life and how it did change my life. First of all, what is the artist's way? The artist's way is a 12-week self-help book that helps you just kind of get back on track with artistic recovery and discovery of self-expression. So it was written by Julia Cameron, and it's in just a book form, broken up into 12 different weeks, and each week has a different topic or theme. And as you go through the book, you read the chapters, and then at the end of the chapters there's different tasks that you complete based on the theme for the week. In the front cover it says this about it: "The Artist's Way is a powerfully provocative and inspiring work. In it, Julia Cameron takes readers on an amazing 12-week journey to discover the inextricable link between their spiritual and creative selves. A revolutionary program for artistic renewal from the world's foremost authority on the creative process. The Artist's Way is a life-changing book." And I fully agree with that. So on the back, there's some praise for the Artist's Way. And the first one says, "A fascinating and fun 12-week-long program of exercises and exploration to help you loosen up your artistic self. 3 times in the last decade I've committed to doing the Artist's Way, and each time I've learned something important and surprising about myself and my work. I have completed this 12-week program once, and I plan on doing it again in the future, but I just did it last year, so it hasn't been too long since I've done it, so I feel like I still am retaining all of the information in here, and I'm not ready to reread it again, but I definitely will in the future, as time passes, and I feel like I need a refresher." I think this is a really important quote that kind of describes this book well. It says, "No matter what your age or your life path, whether making art is your career or your hobby or your dream, it's not too late or too egotistical or too selfish or too silly to work on your creativity." And I think that's just really important to hear. You don't necessarily have to be an artist to read this book or try out the program. All you have to have is a curiosity for the creative process and just wanting to live life more creatively. You don't necessarily have to have a specific medium that you want to work with or a specific skill that you want to improve on. It's more just realizing the discovery and the journey that the creative process is. One thing that some people don't like about this book is that it talks a lot about God, but you don't have to believe in God to find important information in this book that resonates. And so God can be any idea that you want it to be. So Julia Cameron, in the beginning of the book, she emphasizes that when she says God, it can be, you can exchange that for the universe or whatever you believe in. And so I thought that was a really cool way to just be inclusive to everyone. And really, this is a spiritual process, so you kind of have to be okay with the idea of spirituality and just diving into some of those other principles within that, as well as really embarking on your creative journey. So for this program, really all you need is this book. There's different iterations. This one is the 30th anniversary copy, and you'll find these commonly on eBay or any used book website or thrift stores. I've seen it a few times since I bought it. I wasn't looking for it before, and so I never noticed it, but since I've bought it and completed the program, I've noticed it kind of floating around. So you don't necessarily have to buy a new copy, but I have marked up this book a lot, so I imagine any used copies might be marked up if the person did complete the process. So you definitely need this book. This is technically all you need, but I enjoyed having this workbook to go along with it. I just found that it made it a little neater. I didn't have to write out the prompts at the end of each chapter to do the tasks. They were all just kind of laid out in the workbook, and so when I would skip one, I could easily go back to it and realize which one I had skipped. And otherwise, I found myself writing down all the tasks in a separate notebook, and it was just a little bit tedious and messy, and I didn't know how much room I would need for each task, so this is nice to have each task on a separate page that you just know it's all in here, and you can go back and finish up anything you didn't do the first time around anytime you want. This book I thought I needed to buy. This is the Morning Pages journal. This you definitely don't need, and in fact I would say I don't really recommend it because the pages are quite large in this book, and so it can be a little bit intimidating when you're first starting out. And so you'll see, like, I filled up these pages as part of the morning pages task, and I made it to about, let's see, I made it this far. You know, so maybe it's almost halfway, not quite. And I was writing pretty small and pretty neatly. And then eventually I switched over to a smaller notebook that was just more manageable and made more sense with my daily routine. So I would say I don't recommend getting the morning pages journal. I do recommend, obviously, you have to get the book, and then I recommend getting the workbook. Don't need the workbook, but I recommend it. So in this program, each chapter, like I said, is broken up into different themes. And at the end of each chapter, they have the tasks that you need to complete. Along with reading each chapter and completing the tasks, you also need to go on an artist date, which is where you go all by yourself and you do anything you want to kind of gain inspiration and to just exist in that moment and just kind of feel and notice what types of inspiration are coming your way. And so a lot of times we feel like we're too busy to spend time alone or to do things that maybe we've wanted to do, but we just feel like they're not that important. So the artist date really motivates you to just kind of get out there and do something that can help inspire your work later. And so that's part of it. And then also each week you have to write morning pages each morning. And so that's where the morning pages journal came into play. And you're supposed to write 3 pages each morning, and they're quite large pages. So I found myself, you know, waking up and starting to write my pages, and it was just taking a long time because I was writing small and I was writing neat, and it was taking up a lot of my morning. And then I started to feel rushed, and it kind of stressed me out. And it's not meant to be stressful. It's meant to just be kind of like a brain dump in the morning where you write about anything you want for 3 pages. And it could even be like, it's just really stream of consciousness. Like it could be like, oh, I have nothing else to say, or I'm kind of stressed out about today, or you could start writing your shopping list. Like it's really just whatever you're kind of thinking of. But you'll find that as time goes on, you start to get some ideas related to your work, and you start to kind of process through some things just naturally. You don't even have to really make an effort to do it, but you'll find a lot of important reflection in these morning pages as you're completing this process and you're kind of reflecting on the journey that you're on. So for the Artist Way, you can actually pay to join a community of people that are working on this, and there might be you know, an instructor leading the group, and you complete these 12 weeks with a different group, or you can do it all by yourself. But for me, I ended up doing it with a friend, and I think that was really important, and it allowed us to really complete the program and hold ourselves accountable. And just to have someone to talk about it with made it more salient and allowed us to work through each week's themes and kind of get new ideas about ourselves and about our art and the process. And so I would recommend definitely doing it with other people if possible. We had a lot of fun doing it just us two, and so I would say really all you need is one other person. Some people will start it and they'll try to do it themselves, and then they find, you know, they get too busy and they don't complete all the tasks, or they get kind of intimidated by it, and so they don't end up completing the whole 12 weeks. But I think having a friend really helps. Just you guys both get to stay on track, and it just makes it more fun. For us, each week we would read the chapter, and then we would do the tasks. We would do our artist date, and then we would do our morning pages, and then we would meet every Tuesday. We live in different cities, and so we would meet on FaceTime, and we would have our little artist night every Tuesday at like 6 o'clock. And so at that meeting, we would talk about the things that we learned from the chapter, the things that really resonated with us. Sometimes things didn't resonate with us, and we talked about that too. We talked about some of the quotes that we liked in the book, because on the side of each page, there's different quotes, and I actually found a lot of them to be really special and meaningful, and I just think they kind of aided in the creative process in some way. So they were just kind of fun to talk about. So we would talk about the chapters, and we would talk about some of the weekly tasks that we did. You don't have to do all the weekly tasks. You know, sometimes we didn't do all of them. A lot of times we didn't do all of them. We just picked the ones that resonated with us or that we felt like might be important to do. And we would talk about our answers for those. Sometimes we did the same one, sometimes we didn't. And so we would talk about that. And something else that we kind of added to our own Artist Way process is we added each week, we would kind of come up with like a fun potion drink that we would drink during our meeting. And so we would have like a fun glass that we would make it in, and we would add like edible glitter or like weird combinations of like, you know, juices or weird seltzer water things that we had seen, and we just randomly would create, because we talked about how we used to always like to make potions when we were little, and just always be mixing things together. And so we felt like that kind of captured the spirit of the Artist Way. So that was a fun little thing that we would do and have with our meetings. We also eventually started cooking from a cookbook, and we used the Molly Katzen Broccoli Forest cookbook because we felt like the cover of it and the art inside and the recipes were just very, you know, appropriate for the theme of the Artist Way. Molly drew all of her own illustrations in the cookbook, and it was just kind of really cute and whimsical and bizarre in the way that art can be. And so we would make recipes from that cookbook, and we would do the same recipe and then eat them while we were on FaceTime, so it felt like we were together. Another thing that we did was we had a playlist, and so each week we would add a song sometime during the week, and just a song that either we listened to and we were thinking, oh, this really resonates with the Artist Way, or if it was related to the theme at all. And so eventually at the end of it, we had a whole playlist of songs that really captured the spirit of the Artist Way. And so it was just a fun project, and now we can listen back to that playlist and just be transported to that time and just think about all the things that we got to learn together and just that whole creative process. Some other things we tried to implement in our art meetings were, let's see, I have a list. The first day that we met after reading the first chapter, we were so excited. And so we made a list of all the things that we wanted to do. We just got so inspired, and we were just kind of taking the idea and running with it and wanting to do so many things because we were so excited. And so this is what we wanted to do at first. We didn't do all of these things, but we were thinking this would be fun. So we were gonna do a collage each week, and we started out each week for the first maybe 3 or 4 weeks doing a collage, like a digital collage. And so we would do that. And for me, I remember making collages of items that I had seen at thrift stores that I wanted to buy that I didn't buy. So it was kind of a way for me to save money, but just kind of capture the joy I felt when I saw those different things at the thrift store. So that was fun. We also wanted to spend $10 at a thrift store minimum, and we were going to buy materials for art. We didn't end up doing that, but it sounds like a fun idea. Maybe someday. We also, then I had Potion of the Week. We did that. That was fun. Then we were gonna do an analog task each week. And so here I wrote, we needed to do 2 snail mails a week and 1 jail mail. We were gonna be writing letters to people in jail, and we've done that before. We wrote letters to vegan activists a long time ago, and we were just thinking that might be fun to do again. Not necessarily to vegan activists, but to people in jail. I don't know, we never did it. We were gonna make jail mail origami and give them origami. We had so many ideas. We were like, the first day when we met, we were so excited. So that's what I had for that. And then eventually just each week it kind of evolved into, you know, whatever made sense for us during that week. So sometimes it was a little shorter meetings, sometimes it was longer meetings, and we would just talk about each thing that we learned, our weekly things, and then we also would do, like, work on some type of art during that meeting, like towards the end of it. And so In the beginning we were doing like trash crafts, and we were just kind of getting back into just producing anything and being comfortable with the idea that like you don't have to keep what you make. It doesn't have to be something super special to you. It's just kind of like the fear of a blank page, you know, you gotta get started somewhere. And so we would start just making things out of trash. So for me it was kind of like collage. My friend made some stuff out of like some clay and stuff. But nothing that is super like, oh, we want this on display somewhere. Just getting comfortable with making something. And some of the principles that I'm going to take away from this book that I will always keep with me are that creativity is something that you really need to just do. And even when you're having a block, an artist block, as they say in the book, you really need to just move past it, and there's really nothing stopping you from creating. You might have all these ideas in your head about why you can't do something or why something's going to be hard or too time consuming, but really at the end of the day all you have to do is just do something, you know, start the creative process. It doesn't even matter if it's not really going to produce the outcome that you're looking for, but really every time you're exercising your creative muscles, you know, you get somewhere with it. And even if you can commit to just 5 minutes a day, that 5 minutes might turn into 10 minutes, into an hour, and you'll get a lot further than you would have if you didn't do anything at all. And one of the things in this book too that it talks about is that we actually do have time for art, and a lot of times we think that we're too busy or maybe we don't have the right materials, but really you can make art out of so many different things. You don't need expensive fancy materials. You can be creative with what you have, and in fact that's even more of a challenge. You know, you have to use what you have and not just spend all this money on these fancy materials that end up not being used. And I was definitely guilty of that. I always start and stop, you know, hobbies and creative projects because I don't think that I'm an expert, or I don't think that I have enough time to learn them fully in the way that I would like to. But really, like, creativity is just kind of playing, and so it's just important to like really just do it. Like, all you have to do is just start somewhere and just try something small and get your feet wet, and that's really, you know, the hardest part. And once you're in, I feel like it gets a lot easier. There's so many good quotes in this book. I put stars next to all the ones that I liked as I was reading through. And one thing my grandpa used to do is write down a daily quote on a note card. And so one of the things I want to do is go back and look through this book and look through the pages and start writing some of those quotes down, because I think they're really important to just reference back to and just to look at for a source of inspiration. They really do mean something, you know, they're not just, you know, empty platitudes. So this quote says, "True life is lived when tiny changes occur." And that's by Leo Tolstoy. And I feel like that is so true about this book. It's just the sum of all of the tiny changes that create the whole picture of what the end result is. I like this one a lot. "You are lost the instant you know what the result will be." And so a lot of times that we feel like we're starting on a journey, we feel like we want to know what the outcome is going to be. We want to know what the final piece is going to look like. But this guide kind of reminds us to just play with things, and you never know really how things are truly going to turn out. And that is the beauty of art, is that, you know, you never know for sure what's going to appear on the page or what experience you're going to bring to your project, and it's going to kind of realize itself throughout the creative process. So I think just always being curious and always kind of just following, you know, your expression and seeing where it leads is such an important part of this process. So how do I use the Artist Way today? Because I'm done with this 12-step program. And so now I just kind of carry the principles into my everyday life. And so one thing I do, I still do my morning pages, but they're just on a much smaller scale because I found that I didn't have enough time in the mornings to get 3 huge pages done. So now I just use my slingshot journal. Each day has a different size segment, and so I feel like that's kind of related to the Artist Way too, is that it's kind of the beauty of some are longer than others, and maybe that's what you need that day. You know, you need a little more space to process something. But I found that writing tiny in these pages and filling them up is something that I can do every single day, and it's just so much more manageable than thinking about I need to write 3 pages and oh no, if I miss a day or I'm on vacation, I'm not gonna have time and things like that. So I find that writing in a small journal each day, just one little, paragraph, can still be helpful and enlightening. As far as weekly artist dates go, I don't really try to do one date a week. I have a lot of time to myself, and I am able to make time to do things that I want to do. And the Artist Way really just inspired me that if there's something that I want to do, I should just go do it. Like, I don't need to make an excuse. I don't need to think that it's not worthwhile. I don't need to build up expectations in my head or think that I could be doing something else that's more productive. Sometimes just being somewhere and being alone and enjoying, the company of yourself and your own mind is really beneficial. And so it's never a waste of time. You'll never find that doing something for yourself or doing something interesting or leaving the house and going on the Artist Day is a waste of time. It's just not possible. Really, the Artist Way inspired me to just do whatever I want to do. And obviously I do a lot of things that don't cost money. And so sometimes for me it's just wandering around a thrift store or going for a walk or driving a different way home or driving to a new place, somewhere that's further away that I wouldn't normally go to. Sometimes I'll think like, oh, that's too far away. I don't want to go see what that new place is like. But since the Artist Way, I've been like, let's just go check it out. It might be really cool and it'll be a new experience. And so I'm just more open to making time for that kind of stuff. So as far as my friend and I and our meetings, we still meet every Tuesday. We just started it back up again. We didn't do it for a while, but we started it back up again. And so now every Tuesday we meet and we're still making recipes together. And now instead of talking about the book, we're just giving ourselves time to do anything creative that we would like. We don't necessarily have to do the same things, and we don't necessarily have an idea always of what we're gonna do, before the meeting starts. But once we start talking and we start eating our recipes, we choose what to do. And so sometimes we might do junk journaling. We love to do that. Lately I've been learning calligraphy. I got some calligraphy books for Christmas and some dip pens that I've been learning. My friend also was making erasers. There's just so many things that you could do. You really could just do anything. And so it's fun each week to even see what we come up with, because sometimes it's spur of the moment, just materials that we have or something that we haven't been spending enough time on that we would like to. And so it's just a time for us to really focus on those creative projects and to not be stressed out by it, to just do it, because we're both on FaceTime and we're both just sitting there and we're both, really supportive of each other. So whatever we attempt, we know it's going to be worthwhile. One thing I've been doing recently too is signing up for art classes in town. And before I used to feel like, oh, they're going to judge, that I'm a total beginner at the skill and it's just going to be embarrassing. I don't want them to look at my art, blah, blah, blah. There's so many excuses. But lately I've just been signing up for different things, and last weekend I did a class that was just drawing cute animals with my mom, and it was just fun because it doesn't matter how it turns out at all. It's our first lesson in that specific skill, and so really, like, you're allowed to be a beginner and you're allowed to just make mistakes and make weird things on the page. And I think before I would have really kind of like short-circuited when I saw the empty page of the sketchbook and I was like, I don't know the exact technique to make this character, but now I just know that like you can just draw a line and see where it goes. And sometimes your style might be so different that it seems like you're not able to do it like the instructor is instructing, but you can find your own way. And that's what's cool about art, is that like everyone produces it differently and it always turns out differently. So you never know what you're gonna get, and that's really like the magic of it all. I think another thing too that this book kind of reminded me of is that really every day is so special, and we can notice little things throughout the day that are inspiring and that are really like works of art themselves. And so it doesn't really matter what it is. really like as you go about your day and you're just noticing different things like the wings on the birds or trash on the ground that's in a particular pattern, or you know, a fabric that you haven't encountered before at the store, or there's just small little things everywhere that are such random sources of inspiration that you just really never know what you're gonna find. And I think that's really cool. I think the biggest takeaway from the Artist Way is that really life is all about playing, and you're allowed to play as an adult, and you can really do whatever you want in this world. And it's an important reminder to have, because sometimes we think that, oh, you know, like playing is for kids and we're adults, we have responsibilities, we don't have time to play. But why not? Playing is way more fun than doing boring things. So it's important to play. And one of the ways that I've been playing is that I don't know really anything about eye makeup. I have done the same makeup since 2009. I'm not a makeup girl, and I've just been putting on like different eyeshadows lately. I got this really glittery one, you can see. This is the Urban Decay Moon Dust, I think. But I just think it's fun. Like, you know, you can have little bits of creative expression everywhere, and it doesn't even have to be anything. Like, just do it, just try it. If it looks wacky, then it looks wacky, and that's just part of the journey, you know? Another thing that I have learned from the Artist Way is that when you attempt something, it should always be celebrated. Instead of you attempt something, it doesn't go, you know, the way you expected immediately and you give up, which is how I always operated in the past. And I think that now I can just start something and work through it and just kind of, you know, notice if it's going a way that I wouldn't like it to, but then just kind of see if I can fix it or change it or add something else that makes it more interesting. And in the past I would have just given up, and I would have been like, oh, I'm terrible at this, I'm never doing it again. But now I can just truly complete something and just kind of see where the process takes me. Like, for instance, about a week ago I was making a cake, and when I pulled the cake out of the oven, it was really moist. So I went to flip it over, you know, and put it on the cooling rack, and the cake totally split in half. And I had it was 2 layers, they both split in half. So I was just kind of really frustrated. And in the past I would have been like, I'm just gonna throw it away, like it's done, I can't make this cake. But I was just thinking, it'll be okay, even if it looks a little wonky. Like, the fact that I'm making it for someone will be appreciated. So if nothing else, it's gonna get eaten, it's not a big deal. And then the next day I went back and I was able to frost it and kind of fill in the frosting in the gaps where it was uneven, and just kind of like remake the foundation and decorate it, and it ended up being really like fine. And I mean, I was even kind of proud of it after I made it. So that was a good lesson in that you should just keep trying and see what happens in the end, because even if the journey is there's a lot of bumps in the road in the journey, you can still kind of patch it back together, and then maybe make something even cooler. You never know. One thing that's interesting about the Artist Way is that I've seen it listed in local classes for $600 for the 12-week program. $600. And I did it with my friend for free. And so I think if you need someone to hold you accountable, grab a friend. If you want a community, maybe grab a group of friends. And if you're absolutely desperate and you want to spend $600, you can join one of those classes, but you definitely don't need to. So anyways, that's that. And I really hope you try out the Artist Way if you haven't already done it. If you have done it, comment down below and let me know what your favorite part about it was and which principles that you're keeping with you day to day. And I'll see you in the next video.